السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. معكم أخوكم سليم بن عاشور. Welcome to our lesson 3 from Unit 1 about media. So lesson objectives. 1. Discuss the meaning of words related to media and journalism. 2. Listen to a radio interview for specific information. 3. Listen and match a bar chart to a description of a trend. 4. Identify and pronounce stressed and unstressed syllables in a word. 5. Listen to a podcast for specific information. Warm-up. We have 3 questions for students in order to make them ready to start the lesson. Do you read newspapers? Which newspaper do you read? Do you prefer to read printed newspapers or newspapers online? So students try to respond to these questions according to their habits. Good. Now, activity 1. Read and discuss. Read the words in the box below. Discuss the meanings with a partner. You can use a dictionary. Journalism. This is a word with the suffix ism. When we replace the letter M with T, it becomes the suffix is and the person. So here in picture C, we have a person which can be called a journalist. But when we have TV, it's better to call him a reporter, TV reporter. Concerning journalism, the best picture that suits it is picture D. We have typewriter. A journalist usually types articles in order to be published in a newspaper. We have fake news, so readers pay attention to fake news. They should be aware that fake news may mislead them, so they should have trusted sources. Nowadays we are in a digital age, that is, technology is everywhere in our life. Disappear means vanish, does not exist suddenly. A newspaper, here picture A, we have types or different here newspapers. Good. Activity 2. Listen and answer. Listen to an interview with a journalist about the future of journalism. Read the statements 1 to 6. Is each statement true or false? Here we have, according to Dr. David, journalism is faster than social media at reporting news. Anyone can be a journalist. Social media is not a trusted source of news. Printed newspapers will disappear soon. The number of people reading electronic versions of newspaper is increasing. Number 6. There is no need for journalists to develop their technological skills. The learning strategy here, students should predict and listen for keywords more efficient than trying to understand everything a speaker says. It is also a useful strategy for listening exams. Good. So let's start our listening. After that, I am going to check your answers. Here we go.
Listening 1.3.
Hi, and welcome to the show.
Our guest today is Dr. David, a professor of journalism. Thank you for joining us, Dr. David.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Dr. David, do you think that in the digital age, social media is replacing traditional journalism? Or can the two exist together?
Well, social media is having a huge impact on the world of journalism. Social media is often faster than journalism at spreading breaking news. However, I don't think it will ever completely replace traditional forms of journalism. And of course, there is the problem of fake news.
That's true. Some people claim that today anyone can be a journalist. You just need a smartphone and to be in the right place at the right time. As a professional journalist, what's your opinion about this? Can anyone be a journalist?
Well, I believe that it's not as simple as that. We should remember that journalism is not only filming or writing about events. It is important to research and report on issues in depth and consider important questions around the topic, such as why do these things happen? Who is involved? What is the context of these events?
So what do you think about claims that newspapers will disappear in the near future?
You are right to some extent. Sales of printed newspapers are going down. But at the same time, the popularity of online newspapers is growing, and growing fast.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, we're living in a digital age, and people want digital versions of materials that traditionally were always printed. For example, books, magazines, and newspapers. As a consequence, most newspapers are now available to read online. Journalists can add audio, images, and videos to enhance their reports.
So my final question is, what do journalists need to do in order to cope with these changes and compete with social media?
Actually, there are many things they can do. Firstly, journalists need to develop their technological skills by keeping up with developments and trends in digital media. Secondly, they need to think about how to integrate audio and video into their reports to make them more engaging. Finally, they need to learn how to use social media to support their reporting.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Dr. David.
Okay, let's check your answers. Number 1 is false. Number 2, of course, false. Number 3 is true. Number 4 is false. Number 5 is true. And finally, number 6 is false. Let's move on to the next step. Here we have listen and choose. In the interview, Dr. David talks about newspaper reading habits. Listen to an extract from the interview. Which chart represents the trend in reading habits that Dr. David describes? Here we have 3 bar charts. The number of newspapers sold, number of people reading newspapers online, the blue here color blue of the bars, number of newspapers sold, and the black line, number of people reading newspapers online. The same features in the 3 bar charts, but with different numbers. So let's listen to the trend, then decide which chart here describes this trend or in reading habits. Here we go.
Listen Listening 1.4.
You are right to some extent. Sales of printed newspapers are going down, but at the same time, the popularity of online newspapers is growing, and growing fast.
So here, the popularity of reading the newspaper online is growing fast, and only here chart B represents that the reading newspapers online is growing. Here it is decreasing, and here almost the same. Yeah. So the next activity is about pronunciation. Listen to the words, repeat each word, and pay attention to the stressed syllables. Practice reading the words with a partner. Of course, the bigger circle stands for stressed syllable. So try to read these words by yourself, then check your reading from the listening. Here we go.
Listening 1.5. Online. Online. Consequence. Consequence. Device. Device. Teenager. Teenager. Excessive. Excessive. Participate. Participate.
The second part, copy the words below into your exercise book. Read the words aloud and decide which syllable is stressed. Draw circles to show the stressed and unstressed syllables. So try to read these words by yourself and try to concentrate on stressed syllables. Here we go.
Listening 1.6. Connect. Connect. Media. Media. Interactive. Interactive. Communicate. Communicate. Digital. Digital. Attention. Attention.
Good. So, activity 5 is about discussion. So, choose one of the statements from activity 2. Activity 2 is about the interview of the journalist. Decide if you agree or disagree with the statement. Discuss the statement with a partner. Use the expressions from the useful language box. Giving your opinion. Here, when you are agreeing with a point of view, I agree. I have the same opinion. You're exactly right. If you disagree, I am sorry, but I don't agree. I see what you are saying, but that's true, but. Giving reasons. I think this because the reason for this is. Finally, if you want to give examples, you can say, for example, for instance, one example of this is the learning strategy. When you give your opinion, it is important to support it with reasons and examples. The phrases in the box can help you do this. And here are the phrases. Now the next step, listen and choose. Listen to the podcast again. For each item, choose the correct option and write it into the space. We have number 1. The podcast is about A. The history of social media, B. Being successful on social media, or C. The disadvantages of social media. Try to read the 3 remaining statements by yourself, then listen to the track 1.8, not 7, okay? So listen.
Listening 1.8.
Hi everyone, it's Mo here. Welcome to Mo's Social Media Success Podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about how to be successful on social media. If you don't know me, I post travel videos on my YouTube channel and I have about 120,000 followers. If you would like to build a big social media audience, I am going to give you some tips. My first piece of advice is to focus on creating content that you really love. When you are passionate about the things you post, your followers will feel this. To be successful, you have to create value for your followers, and you can't do that if you're not that interested in your content. I love to travel and explore new places, and I think that shows in my videos. My second piece of advice is to think about what kind of content you want to create and which social media platform best suits your content. For example, if you are like me and you want to make videos, YouTube is probably the best option. If you prefer photography, then you should focus on Instagram. Or, if you prefer writing, then maybe a blog would be better for you. Another important piece of advice is to think before you post. When you post something online, it will be there forever. So do not post anything you might regret. This is especially important when people leave negative comments. It can be difficult to deal with, but it is better not to respond negatively. My final piece of advice is that if you are serious about being successful on social media, you need to promote yourself. Some people buy social media followers, but I don't recommend doing this. It's important to connect with people who had the same interests. You can do this by commenting on other people's posts and participating in forums. Well, that's the end of today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel.
Good, so let's check your answers. Number 1, the correct answer is B, being successful on social media. Number 2, Mo's first piece of advice is to create content you love. 3, according to Mo, you should choose a social media platform based on your content. And finally, Mu does not recommend. Pay attention here. Does not recommend. Does not recommend buying followers as a way to promote yourself. Good. Now read and think. Look at the expressions in the useful language box. Here we have, this is the useful language box. Here, how to make suggestions. For example, how about or what about let's, for example, let's go to the cinema. Perhaps, maybe we can, you could or we could, why don't you or why don't we, you should or we should. These are how to make suggestions. Responding to these suggestions either positively or negatively. So, that sounds great. I think it's a great idea. That's an excellent idea. Good thinking. Yes, I suppose you are right. Okay, what do you suggest? If you disagree, you can say, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think so. I'm not sure about that. Or, how about instead? That is, you are going to mention another suggestion. Now, the last part in our lesson is about discussion about the project, your school project. Imagine that you are going to create a new media project about something you love. Discuss the questions below with your group and make some notes. Use the expressions from the useful language box to help you discuss your ideas. By answering these three questions, actually, you make here the big lines for your project. What kind of new media will you choose for your project? Either a video channel, a website, a podcast, or a social media page. Question number 2. What kind of content will your project focus on? And question number 3, how will you attract followers to your new media project? This is the end of our lesson today. Thank you for watching and see you inshallah in a next lesson.